Welcome to PMR, Paleo Magazine Radio, where we bring you paleo nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle perspectives from both the experts and the everyday. PMR is brought to you by Paleo Magazine, the first and only print magazine dedicated to the paleo lifestyle, and is hosted by Tony Federico.
As you may have noticed, paleo is growing exponentially in the United States. There's more paleo products than ever before, and events like Paleo FX are drawing thousands of attendees. But what about the rest of the world? What's going on in the global paleo movement? Well, the very first Berlin Paleo Convention just happened, and Paul Jaminet, author of The Perfect Health Diet, was in attendance as one of their keynote speakers. Today on the show, we're going to talk to Paul about his experience and what he thinks about the state of paleo outside of the USA. In the second half of the show, we're going to bring Farrah on for another installment of Big Picture Paleo. Today's topic, self-acceptance versus self-improvement. So grab your lederhosen and your loincloth. Paleo Magazine Radio starts now. Hey everybody, we're here with Paul Jaminet. He's been a guest on this show before, but we wanted to bring him back to talk about the new breakthroughs in the science of the perfect health, as well as his recent trip to Germany for what I think might be the first ever International Paleo Convention, the Berlin Paleo Convention that just happened this past month. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Tony. It's great to be with you.
So let's just start off with your recent trip to Germany. When did you first find out that they wanted you to be a presenter?
Oh, it was probably about 6 months ago. In January, February.
And what was the suggested topic, or what were they wanting you to discuss during the trip?
Well, they asked me to speak on natural healing of chronic diseases, and especially chronic infections. The talk was videotaped, so it should be on the web at some point, and that's a really good topic, and it's one I hadn't spoken on before, so I was really pleased to have a chance to talk about that. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great meeting.
Absolutely. Now, did you give the talk in German?
No,
okay.
No, I gave it in English. The majority of the talks at the meeting were in German. They had 3 talks in English. Myself, Daryl Edwards from London, spoke about movement. And then they had Adel Musa of Subversity.
Oh, nice.
Gave his talk in English, even though he's a native German speaker.
It would have been great if he did a dual presentation.
Yeah, that's a little tricky, though.
Yeah, I can imagine. Giving one presentation is hard enough. So tell me about the event itself. When you first arrived, what did it look like? I've been to Paleo FX. I've been to Ancestral Health Symposium here in the United States. You know, I kind of have a feel for how those events shake out, and we've discussed both of them on the show. But what about the Berlin Paleo Con? What was your feeling about the paleo movement in Germany and this specific event?
Well, you know, it reminds me of like the first Paleo FX. You know, It's like everything's really exciting, and there's a ton of volunteers, and everybody's really excited to, you know, work together, build something up. You know, I think paleo in Germany is right about at that stage. I remember the first Paleo FX. I'm sure you do too. There were volunteers all over the place, and you know, it was just a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And this one was like that. One of the volunteers picked me up at the airport the day before the meeting. You know, there were people helping out. I joined in helping out the day before.
Nice.
Moving stuff around, moving refrigerators. And it was just a really fun event. One difference with Paleo FX, it wasn't in a big event center, convention center.
Right.
It was basically in East Berlin, just the other side of the Berlin Wall. So you could take a short walk to the old Berlin Wall.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of a hippie area. You know, it's kind of the poor section of Berlin. It used to be an industrial warehouse areas, and they've converted a lot of these old industrial warehouses into hippie-like space. So the event was held in this place called the New Market, Neue Heimat. It's like a bunch of big warehouses that have been partitioned, but it's very kind of hippie-like.
It's got a progressive vibe.
Yeah, and it worked out really well. You know, so they had like one area of the warehouse devoted to vendors and movement sessions. So they had a very large mat. They had a climbing wall, pull-up bars. So there were movement sessions. Many of them were outdoors during the day. They had a big auditorium seating over 300, and they had a bar at the back of it.
Of course.
And then they had a big food market. And they had 2 admissions. They had, a full price to get to the speeches and the workouts and the vendors, and then they had a separate food market. And that worked really well because whenever you got bored with the talks, or like me, you didn't understand the German talks, and you could go out and get food, and it was really hopping throughout the day.
Now, were you able to discern if there's a particular type of paleo that's in vogue in the German paleo community or the European paleo community? Because we can see things kind of coming in and out of style within the broader paleo context. Maybe low carb is hot for a particular amount of time, and then maybe more high carb, or just see these different sort of waves coming in and out, bulletproof coffee, or just whatever the case may be. Were you able to pick up on any of that at the Berlin Paleo Convention?
Yeah, one thing I was surprised at and impressed at was how big PhD is, especially considering our book hasn't been translated to German yet. A few paleo books have come out there. The Hartwig's Whole 30 book has come out, a few others. But, really, paleo is just getting started there. One of the things that was interesting is so many of the leaders of the German paleo movement eat the Perfect Health diet. And the 2 organizers of the conference, Paul Seelhorst and Leon Benedens, got introduced to paleo through our book and have been eating the Perfect Health diet. So that's kind of why I was the American representative at the meeting. I also spoke the next day at the German Paleo Medical Society, and I was the one American speaker there. And I just had all these doctors coming up, saying we recommend your diet to our patients, telling me they've had really good results. And some of these places are quite large. There was one clinic that's got like 40 doctors. The chief nutritionist there eats PhD. He lost over 100 pounds on our diet, and he said he feels better at 60 than he did at 30.
Always a good testimonial.
And yeah, that's a good one. And anyway, he's been recommending our diet to all their patients, and he said they've had some, really remarkable cures, just from diet.
The German Paleo Medical Society, is there an equivalent here in the United States? We've got some paleo doctor kind of networks and websites and things like that, but is this something very different, or is this something similar?
It's something similar. This was their 3rd annual meeting, and they've been putting all of the abstracts into the Journal of Evolution and Health, which is the Ancestral Health Society's scholarly journal, and they recorded all the talks. And
excellent.
So my talk there will be out on video also. And we had a question and answer session afterward. They had a lot of really intelligent questions. And maybe because Germany is more compact, it's easier for everybody to travel to Berlin than it is for American physicians to meet up.
Sure.
I think they had a really good turnout and a really active, well-connected group who stays in touch. Actually, one of the people at the Paleo Convention was Polina Sayes of the Ancestral Physicians group here. She was going there to recruit physicians internationally to be part of the network.
Yeah.
It's really good that so many doctors are getting on board. Many of them told me, we really want to get our patients on your diet, but it's really hard to figure out how within the confines of medical practice to do that. You may get 2 minutes with them to talk about diet and nutrition, and, what can you say in 2 minutes that will be persuasive?
So some of the same challenges that physicians face here in the United States with sort of a quick turnover of patients and not a whole lot of time to really sit down and dive into health subjects.
Yeah, that's right. It's really hard for them to communicate natural healing methods. And I think it's pretty important for us to get our book out in German. That makes it a lot easier. They can just recommend the book. And that's something you can fit into most doctors' meetings.
Right. Hey, read this.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you had some other news during your trip, or at least something that you announced recently, and it looks like you partnered with some people in Berlin to get a PhD menu in a restaurant. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's right. It's actually in Düsseldorf. And Düsseldorf, it's a smaller city than Berlin, but it's a business, financial, and fashion capital. It's the center of the fashion community in Germany. And the restaurant is on the Königsallee, which is the busiest shopping district in Germany. It's sort of like Fifth Avenue in New York.
Excellent.
It's a prestigious location. It was Fashion Week at the time I was there, and so they had whole tables with models eating dinner.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun. And anyway, so we held an event on Monday. So I basically spent most of the day training the kitchen staff and the managers on the Perfect Health diet and helping them to improve their meal design. And then we held an event in the evening we held a seminar and dinner. I gave a talk, an introduction to the Perfect Health Diet, and we gave a 3-course dinner while we were eating, and I interrupted my talk periodically to explain the design of the meal.
Could you tell us a little bit about the 3 courses that were served?
Well, the first course was a soup, primarily a vegetable soup, and I talked about the vegetables and some of the flavorings in the soup. So it's good for, like when you have a salad, for it to be complemented by fat or oil,
right?
Which helps you get many of the fat-soluble nutrients into your body out of the vegetables, and also with an acid. And that's why the classic salad dressing is olive oil and balsamic vinegar.
Right.
And so the soup had some oil and acid with the vegetables, so it's sort of, like a mini salad, but with some stock. Then we had the main course, and that was mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes with a beet and spinach salad. With a surf and turf, we had salmon, shrimp, and ribeye steak.
Excellent.
Some mushrooms. I've forgotten which kind of mushroom they were, but they were delicious. And some sauce on top, so that was the main course. And then there was a special dessert, which worked really well. So it was fruit and muesli, but it was a PhD muesli. All right, so
no oats?
No oats, gluten-free, and it had some yogurt and citrus sauce with a mix of like 4 different citrus fruits. They had grapefruit, orange, lemon, lime, I think. It was really good.
How do you think it went over with the guests?
Really good, I think. We had people come a long way, and a lot of them stayed, an extra 40 minutes or so to talk with each other and with me. 2 of them drove 250 miles to come.
Wow.
Another couple came 120 miles. It's good. We have some enthusiastic fans.
That's pretty cool, man. It must feel pretty good to go to something like that and see that your work has touched people to the degree that they would drive 250 miles, 100 and something miles to have a dinner with you. So you're doing something right.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's very fulfilling, and we're excited about the restaurant. One of the things about our diet is it's very delicious and very satisfying, and it does bear a close resemblance to gourmet food.
Right.
Russ Crandall and I gave a talk at the Ancestral Health Symposium a few years ago about ancestral gourmet cuisine and why your food should taste really, really good. My wife and I are working on a cookbook.
Cool.
And it's good to get into the gourmet restaurant world, and hopefully we can show people a better way of eating, and that you can make really, really delicious food and still be extremely healthy.
Okay, and having a restaurant to tap is a great way to test recipes, so probably a good resource for your cookbook.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the chefs there will be coming to our October Perfect Health Retreat in order to help us with the cooking.
Awesome.
And so she'll get to learn from my wife about, at the retreat we teach home cooking. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different.
Right. Got to scale it up a little bit.
Well, it's, the emphasis is on really easy preparation.
Right.
So making things, that you can make at home in 30 minutes or less. Teaching you about meal templates, where you can vary the ingredients in many different ways, so you can follow the same template, but get many different flavors, and that way you don't get bored. But it's really easy mentally. When you go in the supermarket, it's very easy to shop. When you come home, it's very easy to cook, and there's not a lot of mental effort that you have to put in, and not a lot of time, but you get a really delicious and healthful meal. So that's the retreat, whereas in a restaurant presentation on the dish, we don't pay much attention to presentation.
Right.
But they do, and so there's kind of an artistic element. We don't worry too much about the cost of our food at the retreat, so, I shouldn't say we charge a lot of money, but, we charge enough that we can get really good quality food over the course of a week and, not have to worry about cutting corners. At a restaurant, they get really high quality food, so like they got wild-caught salmon from Iceland that apparently is really hard to obtain.
Nice.
And they had, they showed me all the other food they'd sourced. So one of the things we had to think about was what's the right portion sizes? That plays into pricing when the ingredients are expensive. So there's a lot of trade-offs that the restaurant managers have to think about. I think they're really on their way to having really delicious, satisfying food that people will want to come back to again and again.
That's cool, man. I've been watching some cooking shows on Netflix. They're actually releasing quite a few really compelling programs. But I remember watching one of the Mind of a Chef episodes, and it was a Norwegian chef, and it was just hyper local ingredients, super fresh. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, man, this is 100% paleo, perfect health, whatever you want to call it. it seems like there's starting to be a tighter relationship between really, really high class, high quality cuisine, the stuff that's really cutting edge, and what we're doing in the paleo world, which is fresh plants and animals, basically, with kind of a minimal amount of preparation or just enough preparation to really express the ingredient to its highest degree.
Yeah, I think that's true. So, one of the things I talked about in my seminar at the restaurant was, what is the basic definition of paleo? Well, it's the type of diet somebody might have eaten in the Paleolithic. And really, the only definite requirement you can make about that is that it has to be natural whole foods.
Sure.
But there's many different ways to form a natural whole foods diet, and in fact, many of the vegetarian diets are natural whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the reason they have some health success stories to brag about is because they're replacing donuts and cookies and cakes with natural whole foods.
You mean those things are bad for you?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Shoot.
You could make a claim that vegetarian diets are paleo.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think there's a lot more to good health than just eating natural whole foods, and you need to be nutritionally balanced and so on. And I think the paleo movement has been migrating in that direction and, getting to a more healthful place and actually a more mainstream kind of place and, a place that can appeal to a very broad audience.
So maybe not extreme portions of rare beef or whatever for every meal?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the future of paleo. It is a prejudice a lot of mainstream people have. The paleo means a caveman diet, and a caveman ate hunks of meat and not much else.
So that's all it is. It's an all-meat diet.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe with a few leaves and twigs and berries thrown in. If we can get a few more of our books out, especially our cookbook, hopefully we can blow up that perception.
Right.
And help people see that there's a little more to the ancestral movement or to paleo than just eating meat and wearing leopard skin.
Which, in the right context might be a good time, but maybe not every day. Now, that seems to be that in that point that you were making there, that seems to be one of the things that's kind of spooked a lot of dietitians and spooked a lot of doctors here in the United States. They're looking at this extreme version of paleo, which I don't really see that being practiced all that much. When I see regular paleo dieters, honestly, I just don't really even see that very much at all. This kind of extreme carnivorous approach. Most people do eat a relatively, what I would say, balanced and quote unquote normal diet, even when they're on paleo. Do you really see that as the way of the future? Is kind of mainstreaming it to a degree, or really more mainstreaming the perception would be perhaps more accurate way to put it?
I think mainstreaming both behavior and perception. Every movement starts with some early adopters who are innovative people, and they like to be doing something new. They like to be doing something different than other people.
Kind of shake it up.
Yeah, and that tends to lead people to go to extremes. And for a while in paleo, there were a lot of low-carb people who were excited to, have discovered something that worked, but that was different from what everybody else was doing. And low-carb is a simple thing that's different. And so a lot of people did go to extremes. And then a lot of people had some negative health consequences, trying to follow that. But I think, like you said, there aren't that many practitioners of extreme low carb anymore. So the practice has definitely moved. And I think the perception, it follows the practice with, maybe a lag of a few years. So I think the perception is changing. And I think it will continue to do so. In Europe, where paleo is maybe, and the ancestral movement is maybe 4 or 5 years behind, they're still trying to figure out what is it.
Right.
It was funny talking to the kitchen staff. They thought that I would approve of using almond milk as a fat for a lot of things. And I said, no, I prefer you use egg yolks and coconut milk.
And what was their thought process behind that?
Well, there's an awful lot of paleo treats made using almond meal. And it's also, they wanted to have a few vegan or vegetarian dishes on the menu. And almond milk is compliant with vegan, vegetarian. It's not that almond milk is bad, but I think they can do things a little bit better and make things a little more flavorful. There's also an element of taste. Egg yolks and coconut milk
that's your jam.
Are things we use a lot at home. Yeah.
Do you see some lingering saturated fat phobia in Europe or in Germany when you're working with some of the cooking staff or at the convention? I know that's sort of our heritage in the American nutritional sciences, the policies and information that came out of the 1960s and 1970s, did they have a similar adoption of a low-fat methodology, or were they relatively accepting of dietary fat throughout those decades?
I don't know the history, but I didn't come across that on my trip.
Nobody was fretting over egg yolks?
No. The people I met, had really good attitudes toward food. We had a couple of other events. There was a dinner Friday night put on by the organizers of the Paleo Conference, and they had really terrific home-cooked food. That was very impressive, and it was pretty much perfect health diet food. But there were things like beef heart stew, fruit and starch salads, tapioca, and fruit salad for dessert.
Any sauerkraut?
Yeah.
All right, nice. Can't go to Germany without having some sauerkraut, right?
Yeah, there was sauerkraut. There was kombucha.
Oh, nice.
There's a few kombucha places just getting started in Germany.
Cool.
And I guess Germans don't know too much about what that is, but they've got some really interesting flavors. So that was fun. And then at Saturday night, we had dinner at Sauvage, which is a restaurant in Berlin.
Oh, yeah. That was, as far as I'm aware, maybe the first officially paleo restaurant, maybe even in the world.
Yeah, that's what they said, the first paleo restaurant in the world. And that was an interesting menu. So they had a lot of carb-like things in the hors d'oeuvres that they distributed. Mm-hmm. So you could call that more toward PhD than I was expecting. It was really pleasing, I think, how things are going there. And I think it's going to have really rapid growth.
That's awesome. Well, I think you're a great ambassador for paleo and specifically your version of the paleo diet, the perfect health diet. And I couldn't imagine a better person to go out to Germany and represent the American or Western paleo community. You always bring interesting ideas to the table. Do you have any new sort of interesting ideas to kind of get people's minds going? I know when I listened to your talk at the Ancestral Health Symposium a few years ago about just the different triggers for healthy circadian rhythms, those are things that I've continued to put into practice, like trying to get hot during the day and having social interactions during the day, and then cooling things down and becoming a little bit more perhaps solitary at night. Anything going around in that mind of yours to get everybody thinking?
Yeah, well, I'm always thinking, and so every once in a while I actually come across some thoughts that are worth communicating. You can always check out our blog at perfecthealthdiet.com and look for some posts. Probably the ones that will be most new to the paleo community. Earlier this year, I did a series on potential autoimmune risks from red meat, and basically from mammalian meats. But the main mammals that people eat are beef, lamb, pork. Mammals are relatively closely related to us since we're a mammal.
Right.
And that means that there's a little bit heightened risk of autoimmunity in the places where we've had genetic differences with the other mammals. So it turns out red meat can be something of an autoimmune risk, and it looks like it is for Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. And so people with Hashimoto's would do well to avoid red meats.
Wow.
And eat fish, shellfish, and bird meats like chicken or duck.
So really trying to eat from plants and animals that are a little bit more genetically different than us can be sort of protective against autoimmune conditions.
In some cases, yeah.
Interesting.
And another one I did not long ago, if you remember my Ancestral Health Symposium on weight loss, I made the point that there are many health-improving causes of obesity as well as health-damaging causes of obesity. That means that some methods of weight loss are going to be health-damaging. If you just take away the health-improving things that tend to increase our weight, then you'll damage your health. And if you just say my goal is weight loss, no matter what the method, then you're going to embrace any weight loss method.
Kind of a Machiavellian approach?
Yeah, whether it's health-improving or health-damaging, and you're likely to include the health-damaging methods of weight loss. And that may be why a lot of people suffer worse health when they diet. Something similar goes on in the bodybuilding world, where it turns out there are health-improving methods of gaining strength and muscle mass, but there are also some health-damaging ways to do it.
Probably some pretty well-documented ones when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs and things of that nature.
Yeah. So the performance-enhancing drugs are one definite health risk. But another one turns out to be inducing antioxidant deficiencies. So if you avoid antioxidants and are low in antioxidants, then you'll build up larger muscles, but they won't be stronger muscles.
Interesting. Now, would that be induced via diet? So eating maybe, a low antioxidant diet could actually promote hypertrophy, but also poor health?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So intense exercise itself generates oxidative stress. So that will tend to deplete antioxidants. And if you are already deficient in antioxidants to begin with, that can lead to tissue damage, including muscle damage, and especially heart damage is a risk. But damaging your muscle can lead to larger muscles. So if you're thinking like a bodybuilder, you're thinking I have to get the biggest muscles.
Sure.
In order to win the competition, you're going to need to do the health damaging methods as well as health improving methods of gaining strength.
Yeah, we've certainly seen some bodybuilders with perhaps less than stellar lifespans as well.
Yeah, that's right. And when I did a blog post on this, I put a few YouTube videos, showing bodybuilders who had died young. Even though they have very large muscles, they're not necessarily stronger than people with smaller muscles, but who followed a more healthful program.
Right.
That extra size without any additional strength is an indicator of tissue damage. And, that the muscles aren't really as functional as they should be.
Hey, man, you gave me a lot to think about. You don't want gains just for the sake of gains. Everything's a little bit more complicated than it might seem on the surface, whether gaining weight, losing weight, or, simply trying to live a healthy diet. But I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It's always something I look forward to. I enjoy our conversations and hope to run into you some point in the future, maybe next year's Berlin Paleo Convention.
Yeah, that would be great.
Just want to mention you're continuing to offer your Perfect Health retreats as well. Anything coming down the line for those that people should be excited about?
Yeah, well, the next one up is October 10th through the 17th.
Cool.
And we've got a really great staff on the training side. We're going to have a guest trainer, Court Wing, who's the head trainer at CrossFit New York City.
Nice.
He's trained some world champion martial artists, and but he's also great with anybody. We've got a returning trainer, Jay Chung, who is great at mobility work and does 1 hour one-on-one sessions. We've got Shou Ching leading the cooking, and she'll teach home cooking to everyone. I do science classes and health coaching. And we have a really well-developed program that's
cool.
Really good at making people feel better.
Yeah, gone through a few iterations at this point, kind of getting it dialed in.
Yeah, that's right. And also this year we're doing gut microbiome sequencing and analysis.
Good.
With uBiome.
Very cool.
So it's a really good program, and it's also in a luxury location on the beach in North Carolina at a great time of year with 2 heated saltwater pools, saltwater hot tubs, and there's time to relax and enjoy yourself as well.
Nobody will be suffering.
No one suffers.
Awesome. Well, hey, Paul, thanks again for coming on the show, man.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
That's Paul Jaminet of the Perfect Health Diet. You can find out about Paul's books as well as the Perfect Health Diet Retreat by going to his website, perfecthealthdiet.com. Coming up next, Adam Farrah and Big Picture Paleo. I'm Tony Federico, and you're listening to PMR. Hey everybody, Tony here. I'm with Adam Farrah on another segment of Big Picture Paleo. Adam, what are we going to be talking about today in the big picture?
What's going on, Tony? How's it going?
Good, man.
Yeah, so, I wanted to talk about something that I've been working on for, very long time, and it's something that we all probably are going to work on for the rest of our lives, which is the idea of self-improvement versus self-acceptance.
I've read a lot of self-improvement type books, and I feel like at various points in my life, it's been helpful for someone or something to kind of push me sort of outside of my comfort zone and towards possibilities that I had closed off. But then it also seems contradictory when you talk about self-improvement and self-acceptance. They seem to be at cross purposes with each other.
Yep. On a lower level, they are, and it's always a balancing act for us, I think. If you haven't read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I think everybody should. It's an outstanding book, and it actually takes this idea of self-acceptance and being present to the moment and accepting the moment as it is. It takes that very Eastern concept that's just beyond foreign to us Westerners, and it puts it into something we can understand. Mm-hmm. And it shows us the importance of self-acceptance, and it shows us that self-improvement and self-acceptance aren't mutually exclusive.
how would you frame self-acceptance and self-improvement as maybe complementary or as part of the same picture?
Okay. So when we, especially those of us in the fitness community, in the paleo community, whether we're healthy and we want to be extraordinary, whether we're sick and we just want to get healthy again, and then later we want to be extraordinary, or however that comes into play, I think that the fitness thing and the sort of these entrepreneurial things we get into, and getting into paleo and wanting to do something about the environment and eat local and all this is all very self-improvement. This is all very self-improvement.
It's a lot of improvement
stuff.
It's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody picks up Paleo magazine or finds their way to paleo because they're satisfied with where they are. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, it's nice when they find their way to paleo instead of, 8-minute abs or something, but it's still a self-improvement thing. So what can happen, though, is we get so focused on where we want to go and where we aren't now that we lose all presence to the moment. We're just running and pushing and striving. And then, of course, that comes, if you want to get hormonal about it, there's the adrenal system, the cortisol thing. So I guess the way I would encapsulate it is that, if you think on the left side of the page, you have self-improvement. On the right-hand side, you have self-acceptance. And right in the middle, you have being present to the moment, if that makes any sense. And so we want to accept where we are and be present to the moment. We also want to self-improve, but too much self-improvement without enough self-acceptance is detrimental. But at the same time, there's a lot of things in our lives that can be improved. I have a real hard time with that because I have these conversations with people and I'm saying, well, but you can change that. That doesn't have to be like that. And it's sort of like how far outside of your perspective you can get to say, oh, wait, I don't have to be sick. It's not just, I'm going to self-accept because I'm sick. It's like, but wait, what if you could back up from that and not even be sick?
Right.
But while you're sick, accepting it and saying, okay, it might take me a year or two to fix this, but I'm going to do it. It might take me a year or 2 or 3 to take the 100 pounds off, but that's okay. I'm going to accept where I am, self-improve, self-accept, etc.
So what I'm hearing is that the challenge then is to hold both of those.
Yes.
Kind of simultaneously in your mind, thinking about perhaps your past, where you've been, your current state, but still having a willingness to look forward and to aspire, to dream, and to think beyond your current circumstances. And I would say that seems to be really the razor blade, that you're walking along right there, man, because that's the difficult thing to do. And
the razor's edge is now. The razor's edge is presence in the moment. One side is
kind of slipping off of it.
Right. One side is self-improvement. One side is self-acceptance. But that razor edge is presence to the moment. And that's Tole wrote a whole book about it. So that's it. That's the deal right there. Exactly.
And then as soon as you become aware of being in the present, now you're swiftly out of it.
As soon as you say, "Oh, look, I'm present,"
I did it. I made it.
Yeah.
Well, now you're self-congratulatory and in the past, and the future's already rushing towards you. But man. So kind of going back to the fitness application of this idea, I just wanted to kind of mention something that I've been in the fitness business for nearly a decade professionally, and certainly interested in it longer than that. And I think for me, growing up with G.I. Joes and He-Man and even Ninja Turtles, they all have like 6-packs. The Ninja Turtles, I mean, seriously, they have a 6-pack on their shell. It's it doesn't even make sense. There's no muscle there. Why do they need a 6-pack? But the thing is, it's like, hey, for a long time I struggled because I'm not, to be straightforward, I'm not a 6-pack guy. Anytime I've gotten the outline of 6-pack, even if I'm really low in my body fat, it's not super defined. My face is gaunt. People are asking me if I'm sick.
Right.
I'm certainly not happy. I'm weak. I'm not lifting nearly the amount of weight that I normally lift. I'm not able to jump as high. I'm not as strong and as capable in my body. And then when I kind of allow myself to kind of come up to my natural weight, the whisper of a 6-pack disappears. And then I feel good. And it's like, man, there's this thing there. It's like, should I, as a fitness professional, shouldn't I be able to have that 6-pack? I kind of feel like there's that pressure there. And then there's that self-acceptance side. Well, hey, actually, I kind of feel good when I'm quote unquote softer. And, am I just accepting that? So I can definitely relate to this little delicate balancing act. And I think that it's just something that perhaps there's no easy answer. If somebody's out there listening to this, it's something that we have to determine, well, what is that razor's edge for ourselves? What is that blend of self-acceptance with self-aspiration, with self-improvement? And there's no set thing that you can say, like, okay, well, this is the right mix. You know, it's something that we have to kind of mix up and determine for ourselves, and it might even change kind of as a process of aging and whatever maturation we might experience.
Yeah, it totally changes. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, you know, having a six-pack and being huge and all that stuff was like really important to me. Now I have other goals. I mean, I actually kind of still want to bring the six-pack in better and get stronger. But I mean, for me, it's like, well, I'm going to be 42 at the end of this month.
Oh, hey, well, happy birthday if I don't talk to you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we might not talk till August. So yeah, you know, for me, it's thinking, well, what am I doing, you know, now to set myself up for my 50s and for my 60s and my 70s, and like what kind of shape am I going to be in, and what is it moving forward? But see, I'm a very intense, hyper aggressive, self-improvement kind of guy. I always have been, and that's not for everybody. You know, other people, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense, but I've been more accepting of other people, and you say, okay, well, if that's all okay with you, then that's cool. That's you. And that's all right, because that's what's good for you. And
that in and of itself is a form of self-acceptance, because, you know, we're speaking to, like you said, a paleo community. You know, the people who are listening to this have come into this because they are probably like yourself. And I would say I'm definitely more on this end of the spectrum as well, that aggressive self-improvement. Yeah. You know, to be that of that predisposition, it's really hard to understand and to accept other people's self-acceptance, which that's a whole nother bag of worms right there, man. I think to really accept yourself, I think if you do that, you are more capable of understanding other people's perspective, because you're like, hey, this is me. I'm not going to impose that. But I think if you're still fundamentally uncomfortable with who you are, and maybe too far in that self-improvement spectrum, and maybe getting a little single-minded and a little blinded to other people's perspectives, I think it's easier to just be like, well, you don't get it. Like, you don't care about yourself, and almost, you know, get mad at people for not having the same aggressive determination to constantly improve. But I think that there's certainly something that can be gained from both sides of the equation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's funny because actually, you know, I talk to people and, you know, evangelize paleo 1,000,000% less now than I did years and years ago. I mean, I don't even talk about it. Now, if somebody approaches me and really needs help, and they've done some homework, and they're like, I really helped a woman out yesterday with her son who was clinically depressed, and you know, and I mean, I did a lot with her, but that was somebody that had already said, hey, you know, my son's having this problem. Is the chemicals and the sugar and the grains and stuff, could that be causing his depression? I'm like, well, yes. And then we had a phone consult, and we had a long conversation, everything else. But if somebody had just said, oh, yeah, you know, my son has depression, I wouldn't start evangelizing paleo. I'm not out to change people, really. I mean, once they've decided they want to change, I love to help. But I'm not out there trying to change everybody and you know, evangelize the paleo thing. I mean, there's other people that want to, and that's great for them, and thank you, because they can do that. But I've just accepted that we're sort of where we are. And if you're really, the self-improvement thing takes a lot of heart. It's not an easy, if you're really going at it, it's not easy. When it's not easy, you do have to sort of accept where you are, but then always looking forward to where you want to go ultimately, you know.
And maybe asking yourself, why are you constantly trying to self-improve? What are you, you know, what are you running away from? What's so bad in that present moment? That's scary. But I think, it's certainly worth diving into both of those endeavors. Well, Adam, I think that we might have the subject for our next talk, talking about perhaps paleo evangelism. How to or how not to paleo evangelize effectively. That'll be the next segment of Big Picture Paleo. Yeah. But Adam, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with me today. It's always a pleasure.
All right. You also, man. Thank you.
All right, Paleo Nation, that's going to do it for today's episode. Coming up next time on the podcast, Mitul Parekh, founder of OM Ghee. Mitul and I get into the details of ghee making, how he started his business, and even shares the first time he tried beef, something that was a little shocking to his Hindu family. Here's a clip.
Well, one day we went out on a class trip, and I had a burger, and I remember asking everybody what it was, and they were like, oh, it's a hamburger, and, you know, where can I get this? It tastes delicious. And, you know.
What is this magical thing?
it was a weird thing. So one day we're sitting at lunch and my mom puts everything out on the table. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't really feel like eating this. Can we go get a burger? And everybody was just like, what?
To hear the rest of Mutual's story, you're going to want to tune in to next week's podcast. To make sure that happens, subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as favorite us on Stitcher. I'm Tony Federico, and on behalf of everyone at Paleo Magazine, thank you for listening.
If you would like to share your story on PMR, please visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/Paleo Magazine. For full transcripts of the show, as well as exclusive online content, go to our webpage, paleomagonline.com. You can also talk to us on Twitter at #PMRadio.